What's up YouTube, and welcome back to Homebrew Subaru. In this video I'll be wiring and installing a switch panel into my 240SX. What's up everyone, hope you're good. If you saw in the last video, I got the 240 to start up. 5 months probably sitting outside, got it into the garage. Have it sitting in here and kind of just going through my mind the things that I need to get done, plan for the next few weeks, because probably next month, like start of June type of thing, I want to start driving the car. So there's things that I've written down on the list, so I'm kind of going after the things that I want the most first to make sure that they get done. If you did watch the last episode, I did mention I bought a WRX, which is sitting outside, but we aren't going to go look at the car quite yet because I kind of want to stay on the 240 for the next couple videos. But I did swap the wheels from that car onto this one, so we'll look at those first. So these are some XXR 530s. Previous owner did paint them white. I'm not sure of the color they were before, but I think they were that, like the chromium black color they're called. Fitting, this is the front wheel. To get it on there I did have to use the spacer. The wheel did contact the caliper and the strut. Mind you, this car is on struts, not coilovers, and I've managed to fit this 18 by what it says 8.75. To me, I mean, I haven't got a good measurement of it, but it seems like they're misstamped and they're actually 9.75 wheels, but I could be wrong. There is quite a bit of stretch on the tire. These are 225s that are on it currently. They're pretty much wiped and definitely need to get some new tires. Now, to get the rims to actually fit, I did have to hack up the studs on the hubs, which I do not recommend, but it's something that I kind of needed to do because there was no back spacing on the rim, and I wasn't going to modify the rim considering it is also 5x100 and will bolt onto the Subaru. Now, I'm not actually sure of the offset, but the tires do line up pretty decent even with the spacers on there. The rears still need to be done. As you can see, they kind of sit in a little bit and they will need to be spaced out eventually. I'll probably have to do the same thing to the rear. I prefer bolt-on spacers rather than slip-on spacers, but I haven't made that decision yet, and I still do need to get tires. I'm kind of planning 245s to go onto these rims. Just makes a little bit more sense on the 240, and then I'll have some other rims to bolt onto the rear if I want to burn out some 17-inch tires or something. But yeah, they're not in the greatest of shape. They got a little bit of road rash on them, which I'll probably just touch up the white for this year and use them as is, I would imagine. But you can see what kind of condition the tires are in. Not much left to them at all. And then I think the Rotas will get some adapters so that they can bolt onto the Subaru. I think they would suit the Subaru a lot more, and the XXRs actually suit the 240 a lot more. But then I'll always have the option, if I have that the way they're bolted, to swap the wheels if I actually want to. But let's get into the switch panel. So basically I bought one of these Amazon switch panels, obviously come from China. It's just a bunch of switches and a nice little set panel, so that literally you could probably bolt it into, modify it a little bit to get into a DIN area, but a DIN is actually a little bit smaller, and I wasn't able to get everything to sit into that area, so kind of had to pull out the bracketing from the center console to make this thing kind of work in there. But I didn't like the way it looked, first of all, so I had to make some changes. So as you can see, I've sprayed it black, and I've gone ahead and trimmed these little edges off to make it sit and mount the way that I actually want it to. So I'm going to have a push button start. I'll have fuel pump, ignition, and cooling fans. And then over here we're going to have main power disconnect actually. So right off the battery breaker, the cabling will run up into the main switch here, and that will power the front of the car, which pretty much does everything under the hood and the vehicle's wiring. Now, I don't think I'm going to have a problem or issue of any kind with electrical, but having that extra security, if I smell some smoke or see it, or actually get to the point of flames and I can't get to the breaker, but like back to the breaker in time, at least I can kill all battery power to the front of the car and stop some potential sizzling, if you know what I mean. So here you can see I've got the switch panel and just sitting in place. It sits in there really rigid, just by trimming those edges and having it sit down in there. So I've got to kind of fasten it by both ends, but I've got to wire it up beforehand. So a few things. So this is like fuel pump, switch by ground. So that wiring's got to come up to this first switch, and then the other terminal leading off the switch will go to chassis ground. As soon as it's switch on, it'll apply ground to the relay and power on the fuel pump. I've got ignition power that I've kind of already had up here for a while, jumping it to the harness, and it'll come up to the switch. It's already fused, and then the other end of it will go down to the ECU. And my cooling fans, well, I've already got some wiring coming up for that. Switch on the relays out there so I can manually switch on and off the fans if they're not at temperature. Push start, easy enough. I just got to run some wiring over to the ignition. As for this main switch, or main disconnect, well, because I already have cabling running from the trunk, so I've cut that cable. I've got to get a terminal on the back of that, and I'll kind of feed it up through here in the dash up to the switch, and then from the switch back down to the other cut end of the cable that I've got maybe a foot or so of cabling that I can attach to down there. So yeah, that's where I'm going with this. I know I yammer a lot and people complain, but it is what it is. I'm going to start getting some terminals, running some extra wiring, and trying to get the panel all done. And then when I come back, I'll show you a little bit, operation, make sure things are working, and then we'll set the bezel on and see what it looks like. Okay, so it's a couple hours later, and I finally have all the wiring routed up into the center console where I need it, including these big gauge cables to power up the front. This is the lead going to the starting signal to go down to the solenoid on the starter. No relay needed. I mean, it's a momentary switch. If there's ever an issue, I'm going to notice it right away. And I'm going to bridge power directly off of the main cabling to power the push start. And then this is basically just the wiring for the pump, ignition to the ECU, and fans. And I'll put those all up on the switches. I'll get the panel installed, and then I'll probably even, I'll lay in the bezel like I said I was going to before, the trim panel, just so we can see what the finished product looks like. So I've got everything in place. It turned out really nice. I mean, I like the way that it looks. I determined that the storage bin was able to actually stab in underneath of it, so I've got some storage space right underneath. The ignition switch is still going to get turned in the on position to power up the car. You can see the clock flashing. I don't know why it is, but anyways, once the car is powered up, the main switch is obviously on to give the car all the power it needs, and the first two switches are fuel pump. Second switch is ignition for the ECU, power it up, and car starts right up and runs, no problem. Shut down, just kill the switches. And over on the end here we got our fan switch. So I do really like how it turned out. Even how kind of cheap red plastic the pieces look, it just kind of makes it look a little bit more generation period. And it works great. I mean, I know the way that I have it all wired in there. It's just going to work every time I go to use it. It's so solid. I mean, it's definitely not going anywhere. And the extra safety feature of able to actually kill the power to the entire car is kind of a nice feature. Plus, I'll be able to use that as power distribution if I need it for anything, which I got a couple things in mind. And really, from piecing together a 30-year-old interior, it's not too bad. It's coming together pretty nice. So I think next really is I'm just going to keep on pushing on the interior, get the carpet into the car. I got to lay out the ECU wiring. It's got to kind of go up underneath the dash, get the ECU kind of over to the side in the kick panel, and then I can lay down the carpet because it came out of the Legacy wagon and I'm trying to custom fit it into this thing. It's probably going to work out for me pretty good, I hope. The car doesn't, it's needs about half the carpet of the other car, so you know, you just can't find good 30-year-old carpet. So using the stuff that's in that car, I've already power washed it, came out really nice. Lay it in this, the interior should really start to come together. Aside from that, getting that switch panel all done and wired, at least now I don't have to like jump all kinds of wiring and bridge it together to get my car to start. That's gonna, you know, make it a little easier to drive, especially if it stalls. But yeah, if you like this video, definitely give it a thumbs up, and if you're new here and you haven't already, please consider hitting that subscribe button. Leave your questions and comments further down below, and I'll see you in the next one.